morning, everyone. Once again, welcome to #AskTheExperts, Season 2, Episode 4. And I'm so excited for today's episode because it's a first for Namibia, a first for our country, that we have the Namibian Constitution translated into Braille. My name is Nghipandulwa, your host this morning, and I am joined by Maggie Kashinamunene, the sign language interpreter. And unfortunately, one of our guests could not make it, but I am also joined by Pelgrina Ndumba, who is the Visually Impaired Youth and Project Officer at UNDP Namibia. Pelgrina, a very good morning to you. All right, while we're waiting for Pelgrina to just say hi and come on as well, we're joined by a special guest as well, Paul Nanyeni, who is the ED at the Namibia National Association of the Deaf. Mr. Paul, a very good morning to you as well, and to every single person joining the conversation on all our media, on all our platforms as well. So thank you everyone for making the time to that is tune in. Pelgrina, if you can just unmute so that we can start the conversation. So the Konrad Adenauer Foundation and their partner, the Namibian Federation of the Visually Impaired, have now successfully managed to translate the Namibian Constitution into Grade 1 Braille. These actions reflect organizations' intention for collective action to ensure that persons with visual impairments in Namibia have access to the Namibian Constitution, and as a result are able to make informed decisions as they work toward a more equitable future where all persons are empowered in terms of knowing about our rights and just knowing the essence and the importance of the Constitution. One of the key elements of the Constitution is Chapter 3, which is human rights and all the intangibles in. Thank you so much, Pelgrina, for unmuting. Welcome again. A very good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Jovita and all the viewers. I am Pelgrina, as earlier introduced, a visually impaired youth and employed by the UNDP, assisting with project focusing on disability inclusion. And it's a pity that you cannot see me this morning, but I think we are also just trying to be disability inclusive everywhere. I cannot see you, so you should as well not see me. Thanks.
All right. I am certainly truly inspired by that, and I'm so glad that we have this project out now that is a translation of the Constitution into Braille. But let's first start by understanding exactly what is Grade 1 Braille, Pelgrina.
Grade 1 Braille is like in Braille, our letters are really big. So let's say sometimes a paper in one paper in black and white, when you translate it into Braille, it could even be 3 or 4 pages. So they came up with a system of contractions. Contractions meaning, let's say a word that's supposed to have 10 letters can be reduced to having only 2 letters, 1 letter, or less letters than the 10 to have less papers. To have less papers because these papers are also very expensive. So Grade 1 Braille is the Braille without any contractions. So if a word has maybe 10 letters in Grade 1, the contraction that I explained earlier is not used. It's just the normal letters without them being shortened. I hope I'm clear. Where I'm not clear, Jovita, please feel free to ask.
I'll definitely do that. I just wanted some clarity. Let's say a young child is just learning how to read. Will this grade 1 Braille also be sufficient for them to be able to read and understand, or do they need the much bigger letters in terms of this one being now shortened and put into more pages? Or
yeah, the grade 1 Braille is actually the one that everyone starting to read Braille is supposed to start with, because it is simple. It is just straight to the point. It is without any shortening. It's just straightforward. That is what everyone that starts reading Braille starts with, the grade 1 Braille.
All right.
I wish I was there to show
yeah.
you like let's say 2 books Braille in grade 1 Braille, and then another one with contractions, so that you know what I'm trying to say. The one with grade 1 Braille will have more pages than the one that have contractions.
All right. I'll certainly make it a point to look at them and see exactly what you mean, so I can better understand it. But let's move to the Constitution. It was launched officially, the Braille now translation in the North a week ago. And what do you think this advancement will be able to do for the visually impaired community in terms of making informed decisions?
First of all, before I answer that wonderful question of yours, I'd first like to thank the committee, the 21 members of the Committee of the Constituent Assembly that were involved in the drafting of the Constitution. I really thank God for the knowledge and wisdom that He has given them to come up with the Constitution, because our country is governed by the Constitution. So coming back to your question, it is really a great step, a great step towards Namibia becoming disability inclusive, because like for me, there are different assistive devices that a person with a visual impairment can use to read. But to be honest, for me, I normally get things. I understand something when I read it in Braille, when I touch, then I really understand it more rather than just listening. So the Constitution being launched in Braille is really a great step, because persons with visual impairment, as we all know, most of them are not educated. They don't know how to use the assistive devices. So somebody that cannot read the Constitution in soft copy using different screen readers and a computer will now be able to read it in Braille, which is a great thing, because some might have the knowledge to use the computer screen readers, but they might not have access to them because of the poverty, and when somebody is not uneducated, that goes hand in hand with poverty. So I think this is really a great thing, because then persons with visual impairment will also be able to read and know about their rights. They will know what they must do and what they must not do as a citizen of Namibia, because sometimes they say persons with visual impairment, those guys, they do not follow protocol. But sometimes it is because of the materials not being available in Braille. It's because of the materials not being accessible. So now, at least, if someone with a visual impairment do something that is against the Constitution, you now have the right to say, why did you do that? It is written in the Constitution, which is also available in Braille. I hope I've answered your question.
Definitely. Now, one of the articles, which is 10 of the Constitution, it says that no person should be discriminated. It's really inclusive of everyone. How do you think such initiatives now strengthen Namibia's democratic processes and advances human rights?
May you please repeat your question again?
One of the articles in the Namibian Constitution says that, which is Article 10, all Namibians should be treated equally, discrimination to none. How do you think now this initiative strengthens Namibia's democratic processes, and how does it advance human rights as well?
From my personal point of view, I understand that a democratic country is a country that is ruled by people. So this article says nobody should be discriminated against. So I think persons with disabilities should make use of that article to become politicians so that they can also be rulers, because a democratic country is one of the characteristics of a democratic country is the rules being made by the people, and persons with disabilities are also people. So what I'm trying to say here is that persons with disabilities should take advantage of that article to also rule, because most of the times it's other people making decisions on our behalf. So I think it is now time for us to stand up and start making decisions for ourselves in all levels of the government, not only some levels, because sometimes we say the government should do this for us, but then, to be honest, the government will not be able to do everything for us unless we stand up and start doing what we think is right for us by making use of the Constitution, which is currently available in Braille.
All right.
Thanks.
Yes, if you're joining us on Facebook or on our webinar, please feel free to ask questions, contribute to the discussion. You can leave your question in the comment section, or you can as well ask your question. But as we continue the conversation surrounding the Namibian Constitution, which has been recently translated into Braille, Pelgrina, you touched on something very important, that people who are visually impaired or form into the disability, that they should be able to exercise their right of, taking part in politics. How important, besides politics, how important do you think it is for persons with disability to fully participate in all phases of activities that directly affect them in terms of planning and implementation, as well as to monitor and assess every single project that includes or is for them? How do you think they should take up that role of participating fully in every phase of anything that will benefit them mostly?
Okay, I think this should first start at home. Like, let's say, when a family, when a parent, when a community realize that they do have someone with a disability, they should not pity those people. They should let them know that you can become somebody in life. And if they know of successful persons with a disability, then they can start linking those small children with disabilities to these successful people with disabilities. Because sometimes persons with disabilities, we pity ourselves. We think we can do nothing in life because of what we started with at home. At home, we were told you will not be anybody in life. You will not become successful. You will just be here at home doing nothing. And we grow up knowing that that is who we will be. That is how we will be forever. So I think mindset of those with disabilities should start at home. Our parents should know that a child with a disability can become anybody, like a child without a disability can become. And our parents should just stop losing hope in us, because you will find somebody with a disability like let's say a parent with a disability, the way they'll talk about the child. This child is nothing, she'll become nobody in life. Then we grow up knowing those things. So that is why sometimes persons with disabilities end up being nobody in life, doing nothing at all. And then when it comes to planning and implementation of activities, to be honest, when activities are planned by people without disabilities for persons with disabilities, those activities will never yield the planned result. That is why it is always important when an activity is being started, when a project is being started, to always involve persons with disabilities, because there's a difference when something that has to do with persons with disabilities is done by persons with disabilities themselves, and when it is being done by people without disabilities for persons with disabilities. Yes, most of the times they say, no, persons with disabilities are not educated. Yes, that's true. We may not be educated, but we have the experience. I have a problem with that one. Sometimes they are looking for consultants to do something that has to do with disabilities. Then they'll be like, we need somebody with a master. Okay, somebody with a disability may not have the master, but may have the experience. But somebody without a disability may have the master, but not experience. I think something has to be done about that one, because for me, I think experience is better than a qualification. The qualification is just something that anybody can think, but experience really produces the required results. And I think the only time we receive the intended result when it comes to projects focusing on maybe improving the lives of persons with disabilities is when we get persons with disabilities involved, and when we start valuing the experience they have rather than their qualifications, because there's no day a 30-year-old somebody with a disability will acquire a certain qualification that is being looked for, because somebody with a disability may be uneducated for various reasons. We are now in 2022. We are in the 21st century, but persons with disabilities are still hidden. They are still hidden. I don't know why, when it comes to myth, assumptions about persons with disabilities, these things are not changing. I don't know why, but cultures and what is changing. You will hear somebody saying, "Ah, yes, I cannot do those things that were done by my grandmother." But then, assumptions, perceptions, myths about persons with disabilities are the same that our grandmothers had about persons with disabilities. They are still the same that young children of today are having about persons with disabilities. I don't know why that about disability is not changing, but other things are changing. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that we should focus more on the experiences of persons with disabilities rather than their qualifications, because there's no day people with disabilities are going to have the qualifications that they are required to have to participate in certain activities due to various reasons, such as discrimination, such as poverty. As we are all aware, families of persons with disabilities are the poorest families, and it is because of stigma, discrimination, myths, and all that. Let's say a parent of someone with a disability, a parent of somebody with a severe disability, have to go to work and have to take their child with a severe disability to a daycare. Their daycare will only take their child in maybe for a week, for a few days, And then they will be like, no, come get your child. We can no longer take care of this child. And then what do the parent of that child with a severe disability have to do? Drop out of work and take care of the child with a severe disability, while somebody, a parent without a child with a disability, can go to work and a salary and support their children, while the parent of somebody with a severe disability now have to stay at home, look after their child with severe disability, and earn no income, or otherwise they will have to try and get rid of that child, like killing or just mistreating the child so that they can go to work and earn an income. So I'm thinking more emphasis should be placed on the experiences of those with disabilities rather than their qualifications. Thank you.
All right. Very impactful, very powerful. You said something that is very touching, and that is the stigma surrounding, people living with disability. We are 32 years into independence, like you've said. What do you think are some of the justifiable reasons why it has taken Namibia 32 years to translate the constitution into Braille?
I think it is the ignorance. I think we are ignorant. Like they will be like, these people, they what will they do with the constitution, even if it.
All right, we lost out on Pelgrina there. Maybe we can just unmute as we are continuing with the discussion. Just to unmute again, Pelgrina, we lost you there. We're having such a good conversation, which is surrounding the Namibian Constitution being translated into Braille. Is the first of its kind for a Namibia, which is independent for 32 years. The most intrigued part of the Constitution is Chapter 3, which talks about the fundamental human rights and freedoms as to the rights of all Namibians. Now, some of the rights that are intrigued in terms of Chapter 3 is the rights to education, the right to fair trial, which is Article 12, the right to family, and then, of course, the rights to any association. There is a freedom to any association. That is also where press freedom falls into. Now, the people who are falling into the visually impaired or living with disabilities have now been given the access to also, read and engage with the rest of the Namibians in terms of their rights in the Constitution of Namibia, which is the supreme law of the country. So everything falls within the Constitution, and all our rights are depicted in the Constitution. Whatever legislation is passed by Parliament must be in line with the Constitution. And this is why it has been such an important conversation the past 2 weeks since the launch of the Constitution into Braille, to have every single person included into that. Now, Pelgrina is back. Let's please continue with where we left off. And that is some of the reasons why you think it has taken Namibia 32 years to translate the Constitution into Braille.
Thank you so much, Jovita. Maybe just a point of correction. It's not people living with disabilities, but people with disabilities. There's this joke that is often made by persons with disabilities. They're like, no, we live with our families and not with our disabilities. So it's actually people.
Disability.
Yes, not living with.
Not living with.
Yeah, yes. So I think the delay of the Constitution being translated into Braille is because of ignorance or lack of understanding of what persons with disabilities are also capable of doing. Because people will be like, what is the use of us translating the Constitution into Braille if these people are not going to use it? For what are they going to use it? If they need it, then they must just ask somebody to read for them. And then there are really a lot of reasons to that. They say there are no funds, it is expensive. Many people think persons with visual impairment are not just going to use the Constitution, which is actually wrong. That's why we need persons with disabilities to be employed at all workplaces, because the decisions made for somebody is different than the decision made by somebody for him or herself. Thanks.
All right. As we continue with the conversation, please do drop your questions in the comment box on Facebook or on that is our webinar, and of course be able to engage into those questions as well. Now, we're speaking about how persons with disability need to be included in every sphere of, not only government, but also private sector, just to make sure that when decisions are made, they are also at the table to make the decisions. How do you think now this particular initiative will encourage other civil, which will encourage other civil actors to come together and possibly empower every member of society to reach their full potential? How do you think the Constitution being translated, how do you think it will encourage other civil actors to come together and also just make sure that they empower every single member of society?
Thank you so much, Dorita. So I think what persons with disabilities need to do is inform the public on how the Constitution have impacted their life. Then from there, I know that good Samaritans out there will take the example of the company that assisted NFVI to translate the Constitution into Braille, to also assist persons with disabilities. Because what I know about donors is they want to see how their assistants have helped you. So I think persons with visual impairment just have to make the public know how the Braille Constitution have assisted them. Like, let's say, with the information they did not know, their rights, they did not know. So they just need the public to know how the Constitution have impacted their lives. I mean, the translation of the Constitution into Braille have impacted their lives. And I know more donors will now come on board to assist persons with disabilities.
All right. Just to bring in Uncle Paul for your comment, I would also really want to get your view on why you think it has taken Namibia 32 years to translate the Constitution into Braille.
Thank you for the opportunity. Namibia ratified the UN Convention on the Right of Persons with Disability years back. And UN Convention, it's more with representing our rights. So it means persons with visually impaired should also access information in a good way. And I believe this is a responsibility for the government to prepare each program and their projects to be access to people with disability. So it's very important now that the Constitution has been translated into Braille, so that persons with visually impaired can read and understand for themselves on what does the Constitution said. I really appreciate the bold decision under the support of KAS to translate the Constitution into Braille. I'm so happy for that. So even the same way, because the Constitution has been translated into other Namibian languages, and for me, I feel like Braille also is part of our language for the community that use it. That's why it's so important for this moment that the the Constitution be changed into Braille. And I also have a request that the Constitution should also be now changed into sign language, because we are also people that use sign language. And for us to access information, we access it through sign language. And so far now, people are not accessing the Constitution on their own because it's not being translated into sign language.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems is also the classification of Namibia as the upper middle income country, which made a lot of donors to pull out. I think that could also be the cause of the delay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Just coming back to Paul, how do you think this initiative will encourage other sectors to include persons with disability?
Yes. KAS supported the Federation to translate the Constitution into Braille, which is a bold decision, and I really appreciate it, because persons with visually impaired, they can access the Constitution daily, and they can be aware of the rights, of the human rights. Because most of the time, people with disability will suffer. We can't even access the government services, which is a basic need for all of us. And communication is the key. Communication is the key, and it seems like each person is having their own way of communicating. And most of the time, when government is having projects, those projects should be translated into all the languages. And Namibia is having many important documents. And those tools, each policy should be translated into all the languages. Even the acts of government for each ministry, because you always heard that Ministry of Health, under Ministry of Health Act, under whatever act, those acts should be translated into all the languages, which is in Braille also.
All right, thank you, Maggie.
It will be very important for individuals to access the information in their own preferred languages than only English or being heard from other people reading to you. Because as with disability, we prefer to access the information and for us to understand in the best language that we are always using than English. Because Namibia ratified many international and national documents. We need to have access to all those documents, even in sign language, even in Braille. It's very important because not all of our communities can access or can understand English to say, but we can understand either Braille or sign language. So it's very important. It's very important because I feel like for us to be accommodated, all the documents at the government level should be translated into our vernacular language. For us, vernacular would be Braille and sign language.
All right, thank you, Maggie. Pelgrina, if you can also add to your views.
I'm not done, but just give me a moment, because I believe that as like all Namibian kids or Namibian children or individuals, we understand better our information when we're given in our own mother or in our own language than in English. Okay, Pelgrina, take over.
Okay, thank you so much, Paul. I really have nothing to add to what Paul said. He has touched on everything. If I have to say something, then I'll just repeat what Paul has said. So in short, it's just all documents available in black and white should also be available in Braille or in sign language. Thank you.
Okay. Besides, we spoke of the other documents that can be added, like Paul has stated. all acts of parliament that should be as well as changed or translated into Braille or sign language. Besides the understanding now of human rights, what other benefits does the translation of the Constitution offer? What else can we get from the Constitution besides human rights? What other benefits do you think Namibians can get from it, especially the persons with disability and visual impairment?
Especially with the preamble of the Constitution, it talks about freedom, dignity, and everything that you can get in the Constitution. So with that already, I know that as a person with a disability, I must live freely where I want. As a person with a disability, I can live freely, I can have a home, and I am entitled to this and this, and I am not who the community defines me, but I am also a person that is able, a person that is capable. Like when I was reading the preamble of the Constitution, I really got excited because of what is there. I think that is what we can also get from the Constitution, apart from learning about our rights. Over to you, Paul.
All right, Paul, just to answer as well on the question, besides the human rights in the Constitution, what other benefits do you think the translation of the Constitution can offer people with disability and visual impairment?
Yes, currently, the Constitution, it's only now after 32 years been changed into, translated into Braille. Now, where do the deaf people access information from Constitution? We also have another way to fight for that. But it's about human dignity, as you said. Because if any document or whatever is happening from within your language, you feel like you are part of it. You feel like you're included. As I said before, Namibia ratified the UN Convention, and Namibia should implement or follow according to the UN Convention section. Like as an individual, I'm a deaf person, or I'm a visually impaired person. So, and we always want to say, how are we included? Because accommodation for us to be accommodated is only when we are accessing the services. The services of the government for us, only if we are accessing the services of the government so that we can have the right and benefits from the services 100%. And for us to benefit, we should be given the information at this moment in our languages, equally to others. And believe that's a way to go. I'm done for now.
Okay, something else I've forgotten is that at least we can now know what is in the Constitution. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm speaking under correction. I heard that the Constitution is normally amended. So at least next time it's being amended, and as a person with a disability, maybe I get a chance to provide my input. At least what I see is wrong, I can say no, yeah, make this change, make this correction. Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Very important.
Okay, maybe what I wanted to add also is that it will also bring more donors on board, because many a times people will be like, I really want to assist those people, but those people cannot do anything. But the moment other donors see how the translation of the Constitution has impacted the lives of persons with disabilities, then other donors will also be like, no, then I can also assist with this and this, because that is not what I thought about them. Thank you.
Okay. Just while we're waiting for Mr. Moses to connect again, let's talk about the young children. With you, Pelgrina, you spoke. Okay, Mr. Moses has connected. Mr. Moses, a very good morning to you. Mr. Moses, can you hear me? Okay, I think still a bit of technical difficulty there in terms of being able to hear him, but I can clearly see him. I just can't hear him. But while we are waiting for that, Elizabeth, your hand is raised. Please do go ahead with your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm from the Namibia Media Trust. So myself, together with my colleagues, have been working closely for almost a year now with persons with disabilities. And of course, one of the organizations that we've been able to be in communication with is the NFVI, which is the organization we're speaking of today, who in partnership with CAS were able to bring about the first translation of the Constitution in Braille. I'd like to applaud them on that. I feel it's a milestone in comparison to, what has not been done yet. This is really something great. I don't know how many other countries in the world actually have achieved this. So with regards to what Mr. Nanyeni said earlier, that perhaps a step further can be taken with translating the Constitution into sign language. Okay, I understand this from his perspective, but then at the same time, because I heard you ask what are the reasons perhaps it took so long, after 32 years only we have this change brought about. After communication with the colleagues from the NFVI, we understand that it's the funds, not only them, but other organizations as well. For example, the Legal Assistance Center, of whom I just found out were actually responsible for bringing about translations in local languages some years back in partnership with CAS as well. And they basically complained about the same thing, that what stopped them from going ahead or continuing with this initiative, because they did bring about a few copies in the different vernaculars, but then they were not able to continue with this project because of lack of funds. And this was the same case with NFVI. They have said many times that with regards to printing Braille, it's a very costly affair. And this is why it took them this long, because I'm not sure if you have seen this document from the annotated, one single small book of the annotated Constitution translated into two huge books, basically, and those two is just one book. So one can really tell how expensive this is. So I would maybe like to throw the ball back into Mr. Nanyeni's court, seeing that he's the president of the NNAD, which is the Association of the Deaf, to perhaps then, similar to what the NFVI has done in taking initiative, maybe they can take initiative, seeing that they understand the needs of the deaf people better, to then bring about translating this document into sign language, and then perhaps seeking help financially or in whatever other way that they need from other organizations, partnering with the necessary organizations, perhaps CAS also. Yeah, that was just
Pelgrina, I was talking on that is the Constitution has now been translated into Braille. For the young learners who are visually impaired, how will this help them to engage in the larger societal concerns? How will this now, when they are in school, primary school, high school, and then them being able to understand and read the Constitution for themselves, how will it help them engage in the larger societal issues that we have or that we are facing in the country?
Thanks, Jovita. So last night I was thinking of why can the Constitution not be taught in school? Like, let's say maybe 2 articles, 3 articles of the Constitution, the grade. Because when I was growing up, I really didn't know my rights. So learners without disabilities could just do whatever they wanted to do to me, because I came from a home that taught me that I'm somebody that is blind, so I'll never be anybody in life. I'll never become successful. So even at school, when my fellow learners were treating me funny because of my disability, I just allowed it. I accepted it. I was like, yeah, that is how it must be, because I'm somebody with a visual impairment. But with the Constitution being translated into Braille for my fellow young children with visual impairment, I think it will assist them to make informed decisions about their lives and to know that nobody has the right to discriminate against them or to do to them what was done to us when we were young children. Yeah, I think the Constitution was translated into Braille, yes, but I still don't think it is enough to cater for all schools where children with visual impairment go to. So I think it is now up to the schools to try and have these constitutions Braille for their learners with a visual impairment. I'm thinking that is how it will assist my fellow learners with visual impairment that are currently in school. Thank you.
And like we said at the beginning, it is a partnership between the Konrad Adenauer Foundation and the Namibian Federation of the Visually Impaired. It was successfully translated, the Constitution now, into grade 1 Braille and officially launched in Ongwediva a week ago. The president was also there and says that all rights of people should be included, the rights in the Constitution should be afforded to each and every single Namibian. And there is a fundamental right in the Constitution, which is quite important. And that is the Article 10, the right not to be discriminated. That means that all persons should be treated the same, that is regardless of skin color, of race, of religion, of, whether they having a disability or not. Every single Namibian should be treated equally. And that is in terms of Article 10 of the Namibian Constitution. And very, very important to note is that Chapter 3 of the Namibian Constitution is one of the chapters that cannot be amended. We have many amendments that happen, but Chapter 3, which contains all our human rights and freedoms, is one of those chapters that cannot be amended. And that is where all the rights of all Namibians and freedoms are included. And that also includes press freedom that we enjoy, daily, and being able to, of course, disseminate information and be able to engage in conversations like this without any worry, because we are protected by the Constitution. Pelgrina, just your view on, there are only 250 copies, that were printed, unfortunately, for distribution. What the people who have missed out now on this bunch, how do you think they'll be able to access the Constitution? Or do we need to implore more funders to maybe come on board to be able to print more, that even parents can be able to buy this, or not buy, but get this Constitution and be able to engage with their children at home?
Thanks, Jovita. So I was privileged to attend the launch of the Constitution in Braille. So I heard where these constitutions were meant to be distributed. So the only way those that missed out can have access to this Braille Constitution is I think they indicated that at least every region will get a few copies. It's just to find out from the different branches of NFVI where these constitutions are, then borrow, read, and bring back. I think that is how we survive. Sometimes there's only one book of that contains certain information. So how we survive is we borrow, take back, borrow, take back. That is the only way. And the other way is if there's somebody that have extra dollars to assist and Braille more constitutions. Yeah, but the only way to have access to them is you find out where these Braille constitutions are, then you borrow and then take back.
Well, thank you so much, Pelgrina, for making the time to engage with us this morning. Thank you to Uncle Paul. Thank you, Maggie Kashimunene, for translating for us in sign language, and also to Moses Nghipandulwa for being on the platform with us. We really wanted to engage in the conversation surrounding that is the Namibian Constitution translated into Braille. This has been the 4th episode of #AskTheExperts, episode that is 4 of season 2. Thank you all for tuning in on our Facebook platform and on the webinar. Until next time, it is a goodbye.